All right, Joe Kern, thank you for being here today and welcome to the Do Big Things podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Adam. Appreciate it.
Of course, of course. How you doing today, man?
I'm great, buddy. I'm great.
Good. Where are you calling from?
Greenfield, Indiana, which
Indiana.
is a suburb of Indianapolis.
Okay, okay.
It's
And
the
have
next major city east of Indianapolis.
got it, got it. Have you been in Indiana your whole life?
Born and raised.
Okay.
Yep.
In the same town?
Started out, was born in Indianapolis. And then once I become an adult, went all the way through high school in Indianapolis. And then once I become an adult, I moved out,
Okay.
out to the burbs.
Yeah. Well, I think the main reason you're on this podcast today is obviously the podcast is Do Big Things. You did a big thing. You ran all the way across Indiana, and I want to hear all about it, but let's build up to it. Like, how did this all start? Like, have you always been a runner? Have you always been athletic? Like, tell me about the early years.
So I've always been in sports, but I've never been a runner. In fact, the mile that you do in high school gym class, that was my longest run ever until I was about 33 years old when I decided to pick up running. I was a wrestler during school. I wrestled, all the way through school. And running was punishment. You know what I mean? Running was cutting weight to make weight for the weekend tournaments. For me, it was never anything that was fun. It was usually either a punishment or just a way to cut weight. I played football, and back then I wasn't necessarily a big guy like I am now. So football wasn't really for me. Everyone grew faster than I did. But wrestling kept me in shape. To this day, I still officiate wrestling, high school wrestling.
Oh, really? Okay.
During seasons, and I love doing it.
Yeah.
I wish I could do it full time. It's just not a thing you can do full time, So, but I really enjoy doing that. Keeps me around the sport, keeps me engaged.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, wrestling is hard work, man. I didn't wrestle in high school, but after a few years out of high school, I was studying martial arts and eventually got myself into a bunch of jujitsu.
Nice.
And doing jujitsu, I was like, God, why didn't I wrestle in high school?
They're very similar and very different at the same time.
Exactly.
Yep.
But what it taught me was how hard wrestlers really work, man.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really realize that in high school. I just thought, man, these crazy jocks they're not like me. I wasn't really particularly athletic either. But man, those guys work harder than anybody. So I have respect.
We put a lot of work in for something that the match is only 6 minutes.
Right.
You work really hard to get a good 6 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, like, paint us a picture of like when you were working your hardest back in your wrestling days. Tell people what that looked like, because most people don't understand really how hard those guys work. And then there's the weight cutting aspect of it. And man, I know it's tough. I have nothing but respect for it, but paint us a quick picture if you don't mind.
Well, like we'll go with my senior year because that was my more successful year. But, I walked in the wrestling room 193 pounds and I was expected to wrestle 160 all year.
Whoa.
That's a huge weight cut,
That's a lot.
And even when I cut all the way down to that weight, it was, I'd make weight for Saturday. Then by Monday, I'm 12, 13, 14 pounds over. Then you spend the whole week losing that 12, 13 pounds. You get down on Saturday, you put it back on, you have to do it again on Monday. It's a constant cycle. The things you see on TV, the guys wearing the sweats, the practice in the hot room, and a lot of that's right on the money. I mean, we did a lot of that kind of stuff. And of course, you're losing water weight. You're not losing permanent weight. But when you're losing that much weight, you've lost about as much fat as you could lose. You're burning muscle a lot of times, unfortunately. And this was 25 years ago, and I wish I'd have known now what I know then. You don't do it the smartest way, obviously. You learn the more you do it, better ways of doing it. But it was great for me. Just the sport itself. I've always said wrestlers have an extra gear. They have that extra gas tank, that extra gear. They can dig down deep. And to be honest with you, I know a lot of wrestlers who become ultra runners, and they have that extra gear. They can dig down deep when it gets tough, when you hit the wall during a race.
100%. Yeah, man. Like, like I said, like I did some martial arts, did a bunch of jujitsu. Eventually that led me into a little bit of MMA and training for MMA and cutting weight for that. And just the dealing with the sheer nerves of going in and really having to fight somebody in a cage, man, that just made ultra marathons like so much easier for me. Like there's never nerves when I walk up to a starting line.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No one's going to punch you at the starting line.
No one's going to punch me. No one's going to choke me out. This is an easy day, man. So yeah, it helped me in my sort of evolution, I think. But were you running as training for wrestling back then?
Very little. For me, cutting weight usually was just the sport of wrestling itself. We would do sprints at the end of practice. We would do stairs. We would do, and cardio back then. My cardio was outrageous. I mean, I could go all day. It seemed like, but running, like I said, I never ran more than a mile. Until I got into my 30s.
Okay.
Just didn't have any interest in it. It was boring to me at the time.
Yeah, well, me too. So you were just mainly like wearing a sweatsuit, wrestling to try and get the weight off.
Yep.
Were you doing sauna work, and were you like one of those guys carrying a little cup around, spitting it in all day?
Everything you heard is probably true. Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. We would turn the showers up to hot and jump rope and in the showers, and yeah, everything you've heard is probably something I've tried in the past, no doubt.
I love it. Well, what happened after high school? Did you train wrestling like collegiately, or what happened after high school?
I didn't. I had a couple options to go collegiate, but I ended up going into the workforce. I got into, I do commercial carpentry, and I have ever since I got out of school, 20 some years now. And I just went straight into work, apprenticeship. I did a 4-year apprenticeship. So I do a lot of school buildings, government type buildings, larger commercial type. Right now we're doing a lot of warehouses because, with Amazon and everything exploding and everyone getting everything delivered, here in the Indianapolis area, we have warehouses popping up everywhere. A lot of logistics, they ship stuff to these warehouses which hold it and then ship it back out. We're building a lot of those type things. We do a lot of hospital work. I've specialized in hospital work for quite a few years now. So I got into that right out of high school. And to be honest with you, once high school was over, I've kind of just let everything go. It's the classic story of quit working out. Wouldn't step on the scale for years. I didn't want to be anywhere near a scale. And before you know it, I went and had my pictures taken, and I didn't recognize the fat guy in the picture. I put on so much weight, and I didn't see it. And then when I turned about 33 years old, I said, I really want to do a half marathon. That's all I want to do is a half marathon. And I went to the treadmill and I got on it, and I lasted about 45 seconds and I was done. I couldn't run a full minute. And I just said, well, tomorrow we're going to try to run a full minute, and we ran a full minute. And the next day was, let's run 2. Okay, let's run 4. Let's run 8. And it just it took forever to get to that distance, and I've always said I've retired from running more times than anybody I've known. When I finished my first half marathon, I said, okay, I'm done with running. I'm never doing it again. And then I was like, well, maybe we'll do another one. And then I got introduced to trail running. And then, of course, trail running, you hear about ultras. And it's just like, well, a 50K is only a few more miles than a 26. So let's see if we can squeak one of those out. And I just got hooked. And every time I went the higher distance, I said, okay, I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm done. I'm never doing that again. And every time we go longer and longer, it seems like.
Why running? It sounds like you didn't have a natural predisposition to be a runner. It sounds like you were a bigger guy. Was it just that you knew that was a way to lose weight? Or like, why did you fall on running and not lacrosse or bowling or something?
Oh, great question. You know what it was, honestly, because I'm about 6 foot. I weigh about 230.
Okay.
Not a whole lot of ultra runners 230 pounds. You
No.
know, we're few and far between. I always said if they had weight classes in ultra running, I'd win every time, but they don't. For me, at first it was a cheap sport to get into.
True.
You need shoes. I mean, it's really all you need. And it was, it's always been therapy for me. It's always been, get out there. And once I discovered trail running, it's just like speed hiking. I mean, really, I mean, you're getting out in the woods, you're getting in nature. So I'll get a book on tape or a podcast, or I've listened to your podcast many times while running through the woods, you know. So for me, once I learned, you know, when you're running, it's not necessarily a sprint, you know, you got to learn your pace. You got to learn, you know, where you need to be. And once I figured that out and once I slowed down a little bit, I just enjoyed being outside. So for me, it was a no-brainer. You know, Indiana is one of those states where the summers are hot and the winters are cold, you know, and it stinks being outside, you know, that time of year. But I've gotten to the point now to where, you know, heat of the summer or coldest part of winter, we're still outside in it, you know, trekking through the snow and everything else. Yeah. I just enjoy doing it, you know, being outside.
For sure. I grew up in Wisconsin, so it's not too far away from you. So I understand that heat and that cold, man. Yeah, you got to love it.
Right. It's very humid in the Midwest.
Oh, definitely. Were you working out or going to a gym or anything before you started running, or was it just 0 to, all right, we're going to do a half marathon?
Pretty much it was 0 to half marathon. I had dropped everything. I lifted weights in the past, and I quit doing that. I did a couple years ago, I picked up CrossFit. Me and my daughter did CrossFit for a while, and I loved it. I love the motions of CrossFit, but shoulder injury, elbow injury, forearm injury. I just couldn't grip the bar and do the exercises they were requiring us to do. And I'm 42. I just turned 42, you know, and I do a manual labor job. So when you're doing manual labor all day and then you go home and try to throw weights around, it gets the better of you sooner or later. It just wears you down. So I did CrossFit for about 2 years, but went back to running. I mean, it really is an addiction for me now. You probably feel the same way. If I don't run, I feel weird. You know, I've gotten to the point where if I don't get at least a couple miles in, I feel off. Totally. You know? Yeah.
Do you have an addictive personality?
Yes.
Once you find something you like,
which isn't a good thing.
So tell me about how has that manifested in your life? You mentioned that you gained weight. Are you a food lover? Were you drinking too much beer? Like where were you at before you started this journey?
I'm actually not a beer drinker, but I do like to eat. I do like food, you know. And even like today, even if I went on a strict diet, I'd still be over 200 pounds probably. I'm just genetically a bigger guy. But yeah, I like to eat, and a lot of times I use that as an excuse. You know, it's like, oh, I ran 10 miles today. I can eat whatever I want for dinner. You know, which never helps. I dropped a bunch of weight a couple of years ago. I got down to about 185 pounds. It just did not look good. You know, on my frame, 185 pounds looks sick, you know, so I got to find a good median when it comes to that. As far as addictive personality, there's a lot of stuff that's not allowed in my house because I don't want to spend all my time. I've always said there's no video games in my house because I know I'll sit there and play them all day. So I just don't have them.
Smart man.
Uh-huh.
So it sounds like you're just naturally a big guy. Did you really struggle with weight? Were you looking in the mirror saying like, I'm just super fat and I need to lose weight? Or are you just a 230 pound guy that likes to get outside and do a little running and hiking?
Yeah. Like when I got out of high school, I was about 200 pounds, 195, 200 pounds. And honestly, if I didn't run, I would have a weight problem. You know, I stick around 220 to 230. I've been as high as 245, and that was when I was taking a break and it just crept up on me, I really do have to diet. I always said it's funny. I run 50 miles a week just to stay overweight. It's crazy. If I'm not careful, it'll get away from me real quick. And even if I'm eating good and the weight's there, it's just something I deal with, and
Okay.
I'm not necessarily I don't know what you'd call a fat guy, but I do have extra pounds on me. There's no doubt about that,
For sure. Yeah. I'm just trying to sort of get a picture in my head of, how where this story's going. And to be honest, I purposely didn't do much research on you because I wanted the story to sort of unfold as we were talking here. So, and I can only see your head, so I don't know, like maybe there's a lot going on down there. I don't know, but I totally get it, man. So, okay. So, what was your first half marathon? Was it in Indiana?
Let me see. Yeah. So Indianapolis it may still be the largest in the world. It used to have the largest half marathon in the world. In May, they call it the Indy Mini, and at one time it was 35 to 40,000 participants, and you run around the famous Indianapolis Motor Speedway where they have the Indy 500.
Yep.
It was a huge one, and it's just, if you're from Indianapolis, that's the one you want to do. There's live bands the whole route. There's people cheering for you. It's very interactive. It takes your mind off what you're doing. So it's an easy race to run. So that was my first one, and like I said, once I signed up for that and it was over, I said, hey, I'm done running. But of course that didn't happen.
So this race, I'm not super familiar with it. Is the whole thing around that race course, or is that where like the last lap is? Is that where it ends?
It's actually dead center. It's a 2-mile loop. The Motor Speedway is a 2-mile loop, and I think it's like from mile 6 to 8 or 7 to 9, right in that range. So you enter the track, you run one loop, and then you exit the track, and then you go back to almost where you started. So it's in the middle, actually.
Okay.
But it's cool. It's one of those, it's a novelty thing, it's not the greatest half marathon, but it has that one thing in the middle that always have people coming out to do it.
And a lot of people do it. It sounds like. I live in Boulder, and we've got the Boulder here. That's like the largest 10K, I think, in the country. It's just huge, and same type of thing. There's bands playing, and in the middle of the race, you can run on someone's lawn and do like a slip and slide, and it's got it all. You can grab a Bloody Mary while you're running. It's got it all. But it's just a big party. It's a blast, and it comes around every year, and you don't want to miss it. So
I'm dying to get out to Colorado. I haven't been out there to run yet. It's a different beast than Indiana, obviously. I mean, you run a lot of flats around here. It's hard to find any kind of elevation gain, but I'm dying to get out to that whole area, the Utah and Colorado, and try some of the trails out there.
Well, I have a feeling your addictive personality is gonna once you get out here and get a taste of some of that vertical, some of that hiking and some of the running out here, I think your addictive personality is gonna be like, I need to either move there or sign up for a race there or something. That's how it was for me.
I'm an empty nester now, so I might just go ahead and move out.
Nice.
You might get a new neighbor.
Okay, right on. How many kids do you have?
I have 2, and they're graduating high school real soon. Yeah.
Okay. Is that going to change your life at all? You said you're going to be an empty nester. Are you making big plans for any other big runs coming down the pipe?
It makes it easier to get away. I got, let's see, so in 3 weeks from right now, I have, it's called the ATR 24-hour run, and it's over just outside of Washington, D.C. It's in Virginia. And it is a tough, for what I'm used to, it is a tough run. A lot of elevation. The trails are just, rocks and roots everywhere. You really got to watch what you're doing. So for me, it's kind of hard to train for, but that's here in 3 weeks. And then I actually got accepted into the Yeti 100 in September. So they have a lottery for the Yeti, and first time I ever tried to get in, I put my name in and got accepted. So
nice.
So we're going to do the Yeti this fall.
Right on. Is that going to be your first 100?
No, I did my first 100, 2 years ago. Okay. It was during 2020, and Indiana only has one 100 race, or it did at the time. up in northern Indiana, and I signed up for that, and they canceled because of the whole COVID. And then I signed up for one in Michigan, just over the border, and they canceled. And I ended up doing one in Tennessee. It was the only one I could find. I was training for the fall, so I was already training. I didn't want to start over, so I just looked around for anyone I could find, and I found one down in Tennessee, and ended up doing that one. So I've done 100, and then of course I've done the run across Indiana, which was a little farther than that.
Yeah. And I'm probably doing a bad job of staying on a timeline here. I'm jumping around, but I want to go back to the half marathon. Like, when you were training for that, what was that like? I mean, in your mind, you were going to do a half marathon and then be done.
Right.
So, like, where was your head at, and what was that training like? And were you just putting everything, like, I remember when I trained, this is embarrassing, but like when I trained for my first half marathon, I was training for it like it was war. Like, I remember being out in the middle of the night, I have to do a 10-mile run, or, it seemed like such a big deal at the time.
I do remember, I was just saying to a running buddy of mine the other day that when you're training for your first half, it seems impossible.
Yeah.
And then nowadays it's like, I'll go out on a Monday after work and do a half,
right.
And it's just, it shows you how mental it is, that I've always said, if you want to do if you're wanting to do a 10-mile run, 10 miles might be hard, but if you're trying to do a 20-mile run, that same 10 miles seems a lot easier. It's a lot in your head as far as that goes. My training then was, I'm all self-taught, I've never had a coach. I've never run during school. So for me, it was, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to do 5. And once I got 5, it's like, okay, we're going to try to do 6 this week. And it just kind of stair-stepped up, and fortunately I learned the wrong way of doing a lot of things, which is important, because once you learn the wrong way, you know what not to do. But yeah, for me, it was all self-taught as far as doing the half.
Okay. And then after the half, well, previous to the half, you said you were going to do the half and then that was going to be it. But after you finished the half, how long was it before you started thinking, maybe I could do a marathon?
Honestly, a couple days.
Really? Okay. Okay.
And then after my first marathon, I ran my first marathon. It was also in Indianapolis. And when I finished that, it was the same thing. It's like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous. And then I found trail running. I didn't know trail running was a thing.
Yeah. I
stumbled into it one time and, did a little 5K or whatever it was. And the guys were talking about running 50 milers and 100Ks. And I'm like, it blew my mind. I had no idea what they were talking about,
Right. So were you drawing inspiration from anywhere? I'm always curious, like, if people were reading certain books or watching certain movies that were inspiring them to go out and run these longer distances, or was this just all something that was going on inside your head? Like, like what was that like?
So first of all, I see the T-shirt you got on there, and if it wasn't for David Goggins, I never would have run ultras.
Okay.
I've listened to a podcast at work a lot, and I got turned on to the Joe Rogan podcast years ago, and I never heard of who David Goggins was. I had no idea. And his first interview on Rogan really got me fired up, and I pulled a lot of inspiration. Then you start watching YouTube videos, and then you start, I've listened to his book many a times. He's a huge inspiration for me, because he was overweight, because the deck was stacked against him in so many ways. To watch somebody overcome everything.
Yeah.
He talks about his heart condition. He talks about, a lot of things that he was able to overcome. So I pull a ton of inspiration from him. And honestly, if it wasn't for him, I probably never would have got into ultra running.
I think he's responsible for getting so many people out running. Like, it's crazy. Like, I have people come to me as looking for a running coach as clients. And they come to me and they're like, I just want to be like David Goggins, or I read David Goggins' book, and now I'm wondering if this is possible for me. Like, he has inspired so many people, and, he's probably got some haters out there too, but what a beast. But if you discovered him, at his first interview with Joe Rogan, you must have been running previous to that.
I was. So that was the time period where I would train for a half and I would run that half. And then, like I said, I would quit, and then I would just get inspired by anything and everything. I'd be like, okay, maybe I'll go do another one. Maybe I'll go do another one. It was very hit and miss at the time, you know. At any time I could have been done with running. I was still kind of hit and miss. So as far as inspiration, some of it was just wanting to lose weight, you know, some of it was just wanting to be fit. But you know, I guess that's where I get a lot of it from. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to figure out, like, everybody's got a different why. Like, and I'm just trying to pinpoint like what your why is. Is it mainly just to stay in shape, which is a perfectly logical answer, or is it like a form of self-expression, or have you put much thought into that?
Yeah, it's multiple reasons. You know, I like the social aspect of running ultras. I like getting out there with people that you've never met, and you're side by side, and you run with them for 3 or 4 hours, and you learn their whole life story. You know, I like that part of it. I like, we're doing something that only a fraction of people have done. You know, we normalize it because everybody we know does it. But realistically, only a fraction of 1% of people run ultra marathons. So there's a little bit of pride in that. I've always said, you know, I'll never dunk a basketball and I'll never hit a home run, but I can run an ultra marathon. You know, that's something I can control.
Damn right.
So for me, it's like, with my physical abilities, I want to do the hardest thing I can do, you know? And for me, that's running ultras. That's something that people hear you run ultras, they think you're crazy. You know, I hear it almost every day, you know, but for me, in our little niche community, I'm pretty normal.
Yeah, totally. So how did this idea creep into your head about running across Indiana? And where on the ultra marathon timeline does that fall in? Had you already run your first 100-miler at that point?
So that's where the story gets pretty interesting. I ran, let's see, this is 2022. So it would have been 2020, October of 2020. I ran my first 100-miler. My father, which is where a lot of this story comes from, he's 86 this year. The year he turned 70, he's a preacher. He decided to do a fundraiser and walk across the state of Indiana. Luckily, Indiana is not a huge state. It's about 160. I say it's 168 miles. It's give or take right in that range. So he was going to do it in 6 days. So he went for 6 months and he started raising money and wanted to raise money for a charity of his choice. And so he walked across the state in 6 days, and I always got a lot of inspiration out of that. And of course, my dad's getting older, you know, and once I run that 100-miler, it's something that's always stayed in my brain that I want to do something like that, you know. He's getting older. His health is not what it was. And I wanted to do it while he was still with us. So that October, I said, okay, next October, we're doing it, you know. And I started making plans 12 months out. And then that spring, I made it official and you know, bought a website and did the whole thing. And that's where the whole inspiration comes from, was watching him do it at 70 years old.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. What did that look like for him at 70 years old, walking across the state? Was he staying in hotels every night, or what was that like?
So he did a little different. What he would do is he would walk. He was doing about 28 miles a day. So he would walk his 28 miles, which at walking pace is a big chunk of the day.
Yeah.
And then he would actually get picked up, drive home, sleep in his own bed, get dropped off where he got picked up. And he did that every night for 6 nights.
No way. Holy cow. That seems like way more work than it's worth.
That's a lot of driving back and forth.
No kidding.
But when you're 70 years old, you want a comfortable bed.
Okay. And he must have had a good support crew if they were willing to drive him back and forth every day like that.
There was a lot of people that helped him out doing that. But
nice.
It was very impressive for me to remember him doing that.
Absolutely. And were you out there with him trying to help him, or?
The last day, well, I walked the last 20 miles, 18 miles, whatever it was. I did that with him on the final day. Yeah.
Okay.
He did have some people who were able to take the week off of work and support him the whole time and, keep him safe for the most part.
Okay.
Because
single day, and he was raising money for, was it for the church, or what was he raising money for?
Yeah, he was raising money for what was it? The Widows and Orphans Fund for the Church of God, which is nationwide.
Okay.
So he was able to raise some money for that. It's a lot of it is for a lot of smaller churches. They don't have like a pension fund. They don't have a retirement for some of these older ministers. So it's kind of to support the widows of these ministers.
Okay. And then you decided you were going to do your adventure 1 year after. Is that right? So your dad?
No, he did it in, well, he was 70. So I think it was 2007 is when he did this.
Oh, okay.
So I sat on this idea for a while. Yeah.
Got it. Is your dad
Of course,
still around?
I never thought, yeah, he's still with us. Yep.
Okay. So he got to see you do this thing.
That was a big deal for me. Yeah. To be able to see him there with me. Yeah.
100%.
He was a big part of my crew and support as well. Yep.
Okay. So the early stages of planning this thing and mapping out the logistics, like what did that look like? Did you decide to take the exact same tracks that your dad did, like whether it was east to west or west to east, or I'm just like, how did you plan all this out?
So I actually went opposite of what he did. He went east to west. I went west to east. And my whole reasoning was the town that I live in is right on the road that I was running through, and I didn't want to go through it at 1 a.m. So if I went from west to east, I would go through at midday. That way more support could be out there. People could come out. As far as logistics, you're talking to a guy who is about one step ahead of a caveman. So when it comes to technology, man, it's rough. You're really lucky that we've got connected right now, because I'm terrible at everything. But my girlfriend, I call her my crew chief, she helped me out on all that. I've never had a social media page. I've never had anything. And she set it up. She made a Facebook page for the run. She set me up a GoFundMe account. She set up all that stuff for me.
Nice.
So that was all on her shoulders. She did a great job at it.
Okay. What did you decide you were trying to raise money for?
So when I originally decided to do this run, believe it or not, I chose not to make it a fundraiser. I just wanted to run it. I just wanted to do, for whatever reason, for me, it's a lot of work. And for me, it was like, let's just concentrate on running,
Yeah.
But a buddy of mine, Kevin, he said, man, he's actually a journalist. He said, you're doing this anyway. He said, you might as well raise money for a good cause. People love donating to something like this, So the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. We decided to raise money for the food pantry there in the county that I live in, simply because it is a small nonprofit. I think all these charities are great, but when you get into the larger charities, there's a lot of money wasted on overhead and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This particular charity, even though it was going to help locally and not nationwide, they don't have any overhead. Everyone's a volunteer. So literally 100% of the money that they got went to the food pantry to help them out.
Okay. What did people think initially when you're pitching this idea to them? A 220 or 230 pound guy that comes in and says he's going to run across the state. It's like, okay, you don't really look like a runner. Like,
no, I look more like a linebacker than a runner. They probably have the same doubts I had. I mean, I didn't know I could do it, to be honest with you. Yeah. I never went that far. I think 30 hours was my longest run, or no, 27. 27 hours was my longest run. And this was going to take, I was projected anywhere from 48 to 50 hours. It seemed impossible. It seemed impossible when I said it, but I had to attempt it. It was something I just wanted to do.
Yeah, for Sure. And then, like I'm also just stuck on logistics here. Like, were you carrying a backpack? Were you pushing like a 3-wheel cart with all your stuff in it? And where were you sleeping at night? Was it side of the road, hotel? Was someone driving you home every night?
So, um, let's see, logistics. I had a great crew. I started on Friday morning at 7 a.m. at the Illinois line, and my girlfriend was out there with me, and she would drive up about 5 miles, which took me an hour, hour and 15 minutes, whatever it took me at the time. And she would sit there and wait. And then I would run to her, get what I need. She'd drive up 5 more miles. She'd drive up 5 more miles. That whole Friday, she just 5 miles at a time on the side of the road. And then when she needed a break, my dad, he drove out and he would go 5 miles at a time with me. I was listening to your podcast last week. I don't remember his name. I apologize. The guy who ran across Iowa. He brought up a really good point. He said, the guy running gets all the credit for running, but in reality, it takes a whole fleet of people to do this job. I mean, to do something like this. And I had, probably 15 to 20 crew members at certain points during the race help me out with this. Wow. So I never had to carry anything. I did have one stretch where I was by myself for a long time, so I carried water, but I don't think I ever went more.
I think that you said you didn't really have to carry a backpack or anything like that. Your support crew was out there helping with most of that stuff.
Yeah, they were great. As far as sleeping, I didn't sleep much. I slept for 3 total hours the whole weekend.
Whoa.
I ran 30 hours, and then I took a 2-hour quick nap in my girlfriend's car. And then I ran for 8 hours, took a 30-minute nap, 8 more hours, took a 30-minute nap, and then finished it out.
Wow.
So 3 hours total. And it was great. It was either in the front seat of someone's car. I had a buddy who lived right on that road, and I crashed in his driveway for 30 minutes. But yeah, I only took 3 hours off for the whole weekend. So
okay,
sleeping wasn't too much of an issue.
Nice. And then so you had your girlfriend and your dad, and you said that you had like almost, like, what'd you say, 20 or 30 people out there at one point? So what was it, like family and friends that just came out to support, or were they actually helping crew you?
There was both. It was, I told you I referee, and I had like 6 other referees come out just to show their support mostly. Cool. I had one of my buddies, he ran about 30 some miles total with me. I had people bring me pizza. I had people bring me cheeseburgers. I had people I didn't even know. One of my good buddies now that I run with, I'm sitting there running. I'm at about mile 102 and my phone rings. And I pick it up, and this guy's like, "Hey, this is Dean. I want to come run with you." And I'm like, "Okay, Dean, I don't know you, but yeah, come on, bud. Let's go run." And that was at one of my lowest points. And he was like my trail angel because he brought me some food and got me rolling again. But it was amazing how many people showed up. I said I probably could have knocked 3 hours off my total time. But every time somebody came out, I'd stop and I'd talk for 10 to 15 minutes with them, and, it was so many people were coming out. It was amazing how many people showed up, even if it was just a wave, and shake a hand or whatever, or some people come out to run 5 miles, or it honestly couldn't have went better. The whole thing couldn't have went better. It was amazing.
And I'm also just trying to picture this. Were you wearing reflective gear or anything so that people knew what you were doing? Were you carrying a big sign saying I'm running across Indiana, or was this just on the down low, like hardly anybody knows about it? I'm just trying to picture this.
It made the local papers,
okay.
And we had a Facebook page which got sent around. But I tell you what, man, because it's Highway 40, which runs right through Indiana. And I was lit up like a Christmas tree, man. I had little, they're for bikes, I guess. You clip them on and they blink different colors. Yep. And I had those clipped all over me. I had a big headlamp. I ran into traffic, and when there was no traffic, I'd step out into the road a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it was it was pretty intense because there's certain spots where there is no shoulder of the road. You just got to be careful, you know.
Right. That's what I was going to ask, is like, how busy is this highway we're talking about?
It's pretty busy. When you get in the smaller towns, it dies off a little bit, but it's the main road that runs east to west through Indiana and through Indianapolis. So there's some spots where you may have a 4 or 5 foot shoulder, and there's some spots where you have 18-inch shoulder. You just got to really be careful. And when cars were coming, you know, when I had my headlamp, I would kind of flip my head up so they could kind of see me, you know, kind of try to catch their attention. But you do got to be careful. You got to be awake, because, you know, somebody on their cell phone could clip you pretty easy if you're not paying attention. Oh, yeah. So you got to kind of pay attention to every car that's coming.
Yeah. Did you have a time goal going into this, or did you just want to finish? I think you might have mentioned 48 or 50 hours.
My original goal was 48, but I wasn't sure how realistic that was because I've never run that far before. So I knew it was going to be tough to do 48, but that was my original goal, was 48. I think we ended up 52 and a half hours total is what it ended up being.
Okay.
My original goal was to run straight through without stopping at all. And I did stop for 3 hours worth of sleep. But honestly, if I wouldn't have stopped for that 3 hours, I don't know if I would have made it. About mile 130, I started hallucinating pretty bad, which was a lot of fun, but the sleep deprivation was starting to kick in at that point. Yes. You know, when you get to watch 3 sunrises on one run, that's what I call a long run.
That's a long run, sir. Huh? That is a long run right there. Do you see 3 sunrises? I like that. Hallucinations. What were you? Anything that's worth sharing that you saw, or was it all just crazy gibberish?
A lot of it was gibberish. So I'm running on this section of highway, and it's about 3 a.m, and there was no traffic, and I mean no traffic. You could see for miles, and there was nothing. So I ended up turning all my lights off, and I was kind of running in the dark, just running by the moonlight. And it was kind of one of those where like time stands still for a little bit, or time goes way too fast. You know, you could be running and you think it's 30 seconds later and it's 5 minutes later. So I had a lot of that going on, and I think a lot of that was just sensory issues because I was so tired, you know, from running for so long. I didn't have nothing crazy. I had nobody talking to me or nothing like that, but I was finding myself kind of veering out into the road, which could have been dangerous if there was any cars. Yeah. But luckily there was nobody coming. But okay. At that point, I said I have to, because I was going to try to run the rest of the way through. But at that point, I said I just need 30 more minutes if I'm gonna make this. You know.
Right. And then I'm always curious about like what was the lowest point and what was the highest point. Like the lowest point, I'm picturing maybe you're crawling on a highway. The highest point, you're running 8-minute miles going, yes, I'm the man.
So yeah, it's funny you say that. My lowest point was like mile 102. I had just went through my hometown, or the town I live in. And mentally, I just started to break, you know. Physically, I felt good. My legs were okay. My knees were okay. I had a few blisters that I had popped, but they were fine. I had no problems. Physically, I couldn't believe how good a shape I was in at mile 102. Mentally, I was starting to break. Why am I doing this? I'm 4 miles from my house. I could go home and lay down. I could,
no kidding.
So that was the lowest of low points. It's funny, the highest point I had was, I can't remember if it was just before or just after the hallucinations. I started taking off, and I had a buddy of mine who was on a motorcycle, and he was going up and down the highway, just kind of spotting me for the most part. He'd go up a couple miles, then come back, and then go back up, and go back and forth. I can't run a 6-minute mile to save my life, and I was running a 6-minute mile 130 miles into this run.
Damn.
I just felt good. I just took off. There was a slight downhill, and I had some good music in my ear, and I just took off. And he's beside me on a motorcycle, and he's like, "What are you doing? What's wrong with you?" "I'm feeling good, man. Let's go." I obviously wasn't in the right state of mind. There's no reason to run that fast when you're doing an ultra marathon. But yeah, that was my highest point. I felt untouchable at the moment.
Aren't those beautiful moments though? Like, sure, it's probably not the smartest to be running that fast at that point in the game.
Oh,
but,
ridiculous.
Yeah. But looking back, you're probably going to remember that for a long time because you're
Absolutely
just so naturally high. It's just such a good feeling.
Yeah. That was a good time.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And you know, I want to break from the story before we get to the finish and go back a little bit because we didn't really talk about your training leading up to this. What was your training specific towards this event? Were you like running a lot of roads and trying to sort of mimic this highway that you were on, or were you just trying to catch a certain amount of miles a week, or what was the training like leading up to this?
So once again, I'm self-trained on a lot of this stuff. So it's just kind of, do what feels good, but I did start running almost exclusive roads, and I don't like running roads. I like running trails, So for me to go running roads, it was just, I didn't love it. I still did trail runs. I still did trail races. I did some 50Ks to kind of get some miles in for my sanity, get some miles on the trails. But I was doing a lot of roads. We have some parks that are paved. They got paved trails. So that's kind of the best of both worlds. You can get some pavement, but yet you're still getting a little bit of rise. You're in the trees. You're not on the streets. So that was kind of the best of both worlds. I did a lot of those runs just to try to keep my sanity a little bit, because it's kind of like a trail, but even though it's pavement, and I learned the hard way that I'm not a 7-day-a-week runner. It's hard on my knees to do 7 days a week. But I did learn that if I put in like a 10 to 12 mile on a Tuesday, then take Wednesday off, and then I could do another 8 to 12 mile on a Thursday, as long as I'm getting my long 20, 30 miles in on Saturday or Sunday, I felt pretty good about it. I think I had 1 week where I did 102 miles, which was the most during that time. But really, I was only aiming for 50, 60 miles a week, usually. Okay. Is about all I would get. And I felt pretty good. I felt pretty good with that.
Yeah, that's pretty adequate. I don't think you need really much more than that. What kind of shoes were you wearing? Because like we mentioned, you're a bigger guy. So were you wearing the Hokas to try and protect your body, or what was that like for you? So
I'm not brand loyal, but that being said, I have 6 pair of the Brooks Ghost.
Okay.
They're good. They're good for bigger guys.
Stability shoe.
Once I found that shoe, I just went and bought 6 different pairs. And I just rotated through them. And speaking of that, one of the things that really helped me with this run was every 4 hours, whether I felt like it or not, it was change shoes, change socks, re-lube up everything. Because I've learned the hard way, when you don't lube stuff up correctly, once you start chafing, there's no undoing it,
No kidding.
So I always try to stay ahead of that and lube everything up real good. But yeah, the Brooks Ghost is what I wear on the pavement. I'm pretty hardcore with that. I got, for the trail, I wear Brooks Cascadias, and I also got a pair of the Hoka Torrents that I wear on the trails. I tried the Cliftons, and it's almost like there's too much cushion, I was having some shin issues and some calf issues when I wore those. So I went back to the Cascadias, and I have pretty good luck with those.
Okay. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but what month did you decide to do this?
This was the second weekend of October.
October. Okay.
Yeah.
So not super hot out.
Exactly. That's why I chose October. In Indiana, it's usually starting to cool down about that time. Unfortunately, when I took off, it was only, 68, 70 degrees, but it was 100% humidity that day, which, you can't plan that a year in advance. So I had a pretty good sweat going right away.
Yeah.
But the weather it cooperated all weekend, which was nice.
What were you using for cooling tactics? Or was it cool enough outside you didn't have to worry about it much? Like, were you putting ice in a hat or anything crazy like that? Or were you doing okay?
No, it wasn't quite that bad. I've learned from doing some other races. What I tend to do is, I wear a hydration pack, camel pack, and I pack that with ice.
Oh, so you were wearing a pack out there?
I did sometimes when I thought it would be like 8 to 10 miles, I would go ahead and put a pack on, just because I don't want to run 10 miles without any water whatsoever. Yep. But I'd always pack that with ice, which I don't know if you're supposed to do that or not, but it works for me. And that's got me through a lot of the hotter runs. Is that hydration pack. I fought wearing one for years because I didn't want the extra weight. I'm already got extra weight. I don't need extra weight. But then once I learned how to use it and how to get it form fitting and how to belch it and all that good stuff, it's hard for me to run without it now. I enjoy running with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And did it get cold that night? Was that an issue for you or something you had to take into consideration?
It was perfect. We got down to 55, which for me is still t-shirt, Yep. So yeah, it was the weather couldn't have been better, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe 10 degrees cooler would have been nice, but why be picky about it?
Yeah. And you said you were changing socks and shoes every 4 hours and lubing up?
Yeah, I learned the hard way when I did my first 100-miler. I started chafing in between my thighs about mile 60. And at the end of that run, the inside of my thighs looked like alligator skin. I mean, they were just tore up. And I couldn't walk for, a week and a half, honestly. So I learned to hit that stuff before it starts chafing instead of after. Okay. So during the course of this run, I went through 4 big tubs of Vaseline because, every time I'd stop, it was take off my socks, lube up my toes, lube up my feet, put socks back on. Anywhere, like I was even lubing the back of my neck where my t-shirt was touching, armpits, everything you could imagine that would possibly chafe. I was being very generous and lubing everything up because I didn't want to get behind the 8 ball on that,
Yeah. Did it help? Did you have much chafing out there?
I had next to none.
Nice. Okay.
So like I said earlier, a lot of times, as long as you learn from failures, it's a good thing. Yep. If I wouldn't have chafed real bad during that 100-mile race, I wouldn't have known to stay in front of it, and I had a 12-hour race last year where I got super sick because of what I ate, so I learned what to stay away from during that run. So a lot of times you got to have those failures just so you learn from them, just so you know what not to do next time. That was super important.
For sure. And what was your main source of nutrition while you were out there, or were you eating lots of different stuff?
I was eating anything and everything I could get my hands on.
Okay.
At one point, I ate an entire large pizza.
Dang.
I would eat. I had my girlfriend bring me some chicken quesadillas. I eat those. Peanut butter and jelly. Everything you shouldn't eat during regular life, I was consuming. I think I consumed 25,000 calories over the course of 48 hours. Okay. So I was putting it away pretty hard. I did learn that I called a buddy of mine, John. I learned that baby food sets really well with me. Yep. During my lowest of low points, which was mile 102, I called him up. And he told me, try baby food. It always works good for me. So I tried the baby food and it was amazing.
Nice. Yeah. It's usually pretty easy on the stomach.
Exactly.
So no running food, no gels or bars or anything like that? Or was it just strictly real food?
Yeah, for the most part. Okay. I have a hard time with the gels. They don't settle too well with me. Yep. I did have a bunch of the Cliff bars. Yep. I had a few of those here and there, but really it was just, food that you would have for dinner. A lot of carbs, a lot of heavy carbs, but it worked. It kept me moving the whole time.
Yeah, for sure. No, it sounds like it worked perfect. Yeah, I don't know what I weigh, 170 pounds. I've always wanted to be a bigger guy like yourself. I always wanted to weigh 220,
Cool, I'll trade you anytime you're ready.
I'll trade you. Yeah, exactly. But do you have any tips for bigger guys that are running? Like, have you found anything that worked? We went through probably just about everything, but I'm trying to think, do you have any secrets or tips or anything that worked for you just being a bigger guy out there running these long distances? Or is it mainly just take care of the chafing before you start chafing?
Shoes are important. I mean, you find what works for you and go with it. For me, I found that when I slow down just a little bit, when you're running an ultra, it's more important to finish than it is to go fast. And I found out just slowing down a mile or 1 minute per mile, I can go so much farther. A lot of people get discouraged, when they start running. And I always try to tell them that the first mile is harder than the 10th, Yeah, people just don't want to get past that first mile. But for me, I carry my weight pretty well. And I've talked to a couple other bigger guys, and I'm just like, it's important to just move, even if you're not, till you get to the point where you could run 10, 20 miles, just get out there and do something, just move. Your body will adjust. Goggins talks about the 40% rule. When you feel like you've had all you can handle, you're only at 40%. A lot of people don't like discomfort. You just got to push past that initial discomfort and it'll get better. All us ultra runners know that when you're out there and doing an ultra, it's a roller coaster. You hit the high, you hit the low, you hit the high, you hit the low. You just got to be able to push through the lows, and that's the same whether you're a big guy, whether you're not,
Yeah. When did you know you're going to finish this thing? You could smell the finish line, or you got to a certain mileage and you're like, okay, we're going to do this. This is going to happen.
Well, the silly answer to that is mile 1. I knew I was going to finish.
Nice. Okay. That's the best answer.
Because I said, it's going to take an ambulance to take me out of there without finishing.
Yeah. Okay.
I knew maybe I would have a hard time and maybe have to slow down and walk. So my main goal was to finish, the 48-hour goal, the 50-hour goal, that was secondary. But when I got to like 10, 12 miles left, I mean, honestly, I knew I was going to finish the whole time. I really did. But when I got to that last 10 to 12 miles, I started getting super pumped up. I was having some pretty bad sleep deprivation. I had a guy run with me for the last 15. And it was funny because I said, man, for 13. And then I run felt 2 hours. Okay, we need the time was
there, Joe.
Okay. Did you get me again?
No, yeah, I got you now, but I didn't catch that answer. Sorry.
Okay, where were we at?
Oh, where were we?
I apologize.
No, that's all right. You're like 10 miles from the finish.
Yeah, so I had a guy come run with me the last 15 miles, and my brain was playing tricks on me as far as time. I said, how far do we got? He said, we got 13 miles to go. And then we ran for what felt like 2 hours. I said, okay, how far do we got now? He's like, we got 11 miles to go. It's like, I know we're not running that slow, but the sleep deprivation was starting to get to my brain. So that last 13 to 15 miles was really rough. It was playing with my brain pretty hard, but I knew no matter what, I was going to finish at that point.
Okay. Yeah, man, those last, oops, sorry. You there?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Yeah, man. I know how it is with those last miles just dragging on forever. You're looking at your watch and you're like, how is this possible? It just seems like hours and weeks. And it's like, just get me to the frickin' finish. Yeah, man. And then, what was that finish like for you? I mean, was it emotional and did you have a bunch of support there, like ready to hug you at the finish line? What was it like? Doggone it.
There we go.
Oh, sorry, man.
That's all right, buddy. I hate that that's happening, but
that's okay. Well,
we do what we can.
I'll try and piece this together, and no worries. Tell me about the finish line now.
The finish line was crazy. I'm running through this town and like I said, it was like it was never going to get there. And finally I see the sign that says "Welcome to Ohio," and it took everything in me not to break down in tears, honestly. And I'm running up, and I see all my friends, standing right there at the finish line. Friends, family, everybody. There was 20 or 30 people out there. And it was kind of anticlimactic after you run for 2.5 days, and all of a sudden you just stop running because of this imaginary line in the sand that says, "Now we're in Ohio," because it wasn't like it was a big deal. It was just "Welcome to Ohio" sign. So it was a big deal. I got to thank everybody. I got to go over and give my dad a big hug, thank him for being out there. Which, to be honest with you, was the main reason I was doing it. So for him to be there was really special. It was you want to see a big boy cry. That's where you would have been. I was fighting it back. I really was. You put a lot of work. I mean, you put 12 months worth of work into this thing, and now it's over, And I've struggled with that ever since. Ever since then, I've been like, okay, what's next? What do I do now? It's a lot of time dedicated to this thing.
Well, yeah, I think that's a common theme with ultra runners is, training for the big event and then executing the big event. And then afterwards wondering what's next? Who am I? Struggling with a little bit of depression because there's no focus or drive in your life, or you're not working towards something. So what did the next couple of weeks look like after you finished? Were you laying on a couch elated and happy that you did this thing, or were you feeling a little bit low and wondering what the next thing's going to be?
Well, the next week I went ahead and took off work, and I figure if I'm going to lay around, I'm going to lay around a beach. So we went down and stayed on the beach for a week. Okay. Down in Jacksonville, Florida. Right. My girlfriend's son he was stationed in Jacksonville. He's in the Navy. So we went down and visit him and just hung out. It took about 3 days for me to start feeling better. And to be honest with you, the following weekend was the Marine Corps half marathon. And if I would have took my shoes with me, I would have run the Marine Corps half marathon the following weekend.
Wow. Okay. So you must have been not in too bad a shape.
I felt pretty good, all things considered. I think the training went great. Everything leading up to it went great. I was able to not get so many blisters. I was able to not chafe. I was able to prevent all that, which really, I probably shouldn't have run the half marathon, honestly, but it was one of those, I'm in town, I want to do it, but I'm glad I left my shoes at home, because I probably would have done it anyway.
So it doesn't sound like there was really a low point after this. It sounds like, that's a good strategy, is to have like a vacation planned after something like this. So you go to a beach and you relax a little bit,
right,
at a new place. So that's probably a pro tip right there. And then, when did you start thinking about the next thing?
Well, I struggle with it like anybody would. This may be the biggest thing I do. This may be the biggest run I ever do.
Sure.
I'm not a guy who's on social media, so there's not a whole lot of attention out there. But the 12 months leading up to it, there was all kinds of, I had people come up to me who I've never met, who knew who I was. That's craziness to me. So that's gone, which is fine. I don't need it. Mm-hmm. But it's different. Getting used to it is different. Getting used to the fact that, hey, that's kind of the pinnacle. That might be the pinnacle of my running career. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say it's downhill from here, because it's not. But your brain does that to you. Your brain makes you think, you've went as far as you're going to go. Now it's time to slow down a little bit. So for me, I have to concentrate on not necessarily bigger things, just I want to do different things now. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily have to run farther than that. I want to do, I want to go places and do races in different places that I don't normally go. I plan vacations around these runs now, so for me, it's just still about getting out there, meeting people, and just going different places. I'd love to go up to Alaska and do a run up there. I'd love to go out west, Colorado, Utah, and do runs. I'd love to go up to Seattle area and do runs. The Key West 100, I'd love to try that one. just to see things, you know what I mean? So now it's not so much about how far can you go. It's about what can you see while you're out running, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, don't think of this as this could have been the pinnacle. I mean, like, sure, you could run further, sure, you could run faster, but, you know, I guess what it's about to me, you tell me if I'm wrong, is all these things that we learn running ultra marathons through training and then the execution of the actual event and then recovering afterwards. As fun as that all is, there's really no point to it all unless you're taking the lessons that you learned and applying them to life somehow. Like,
absolutely.
So how do you take those lessons and apply them to your life? Or has your life changed in any way because of this crazy sport that you discovered a few years ago?
Well, I've tried to always teach that to my kids, that a lot of times when you lose, whether it be a competition or whether it be you fail at something, that's an awful feeling. But I tried to explain to them that it's almost necessary, and in some instances, it's the best thing that can happen to you. Because if you don't lose, if you don't fail, you don't learn. You know, it's important to learn, you know, what I did wrong, why this happened, what can I do to fix it. So for me, that's what if I wouldn't have failed a few times in training leading up to this run across Indiana, I wouldn't have learned from it, and I might have failed on the run itself. So that's super important. So that's kind of what I look at now is not so much is it a fail or is it a success, is what did I learn from it, you know, which I think is super important, just in life in general.
100%. And I can't stress enough how difficult this sport is when you're working a manual labor job.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everybody fully understands that. I've worked a lot of manual labor jobs in my lifetime, and I've been after work, there's always the training. Before work, there's always the training. For a while, I was training a lot of martial arts stuff, and then eventually it was the ultra running stuff. And I mean, there's been times I go at the start of a shift, you know, I got to work 8 or 10 hours. And at the very beginning of the shift, I'm like, how am I going to do this? Like, I just did a 4-hour run before work so that I can squeeze all these miles in. Now I got a full shift of work, standing on my feet. And it's like, it's just so hard, dude. Like, how do you sort of reckon with that? You're on your feet doing manual labor all day. Do you train before work or after work? And is that as much of a struggle for you as it is for me?
Well, for one, I'm used to it. That's all I know. You know what I mean?
Okay.
There are times at work where while I'm at work, I do 7 to 8 miles, you know, just at work.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked earlier about having that wrestler gear that I talked about. That's a real thing. You know, you grind it out. So for me, it's like, you just don't make things an option. I go to work. I take my running clothes with me to work. I get up at 4:30 to go to work, so I really can't run before work. I'm not that crazy.
Yeah.
But I'll take myself with me to work, and it's for me, it's don't go home, don't get comfortable, don't just go straight to the woods or go straight to wherever you're going to run and get your miles in. You know, when you make it an option, or when you go home first and you're like, yeah, I really don't feel like doing it tonight, you just can't make it an option. That's what I do.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good strategy. Bring your running clothes with you. And then, it's like, don't sit down after work. If you sit down, it's all over. Like, gotta keep moving, gotta make it to the gym, gotta make it to the trail. Yeah, I get it. And then, all right, man. So what's coming up in the future? You mentioned the Yeti.
Yep. So here in 3 weeks, I have the ATR 24-hour, which is out just outside of DC in Virginia. I'm gonna give a quick shout out. I'm gonna give a quick shout out if you don't mind. A buddy of mine who I started, he's a YouTuber. He's got a channel. It's called Motivation Theory Running on YouTube. Super interesting guy, and it's one of those. He was going to this race last year, and I said, well, I'd like to go meet him. I'd like to run this race with him. And super down to earth, normal guy. I get out there, we run the race together. And we've been in contact ever since. So little shout out if you guys want some good content on YouTube, Motivation Theory Running. His name's John. He's a great guy. I got that race with him here in 3 weeks.
Do you have a goal for that one?
So last year when I did it, I don't want to say I failed, because you can't really fail in a 24-hour run. But I did do all 24 hours. And I was really upset with myself. I tapped out at 21 hours. That's the first time I've ever fallen asleep while running. Not being from Indiana, I'm not used to that terrain. That terrain just ate me alive. So this year we did 63 miles last year, which don't sound like a lot, but we did a lot of elevation. It was a tough run. That 63 miles was harder than any 100-miler I've done.
Yeah, it's at elevation, right? And there's a lot of rolling up and down throughout the course, right?
Yeah, it's not real high elevation, but there's a lot of up and down.
Okay.
And there's nowhere for me to train that type of elevation around here. I went out there and it kicked my butt pretty hard. So we did 63 miles last year in 21 hours. So I want to my main goal is do all 24 hours.
Okay.
If we can do 70 miles, 75, I'd be super happy with that. I've been living with the regret of stopping early ever since last year. So I want a little redemption on this race.
Well, payback time. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I got that. I got the Yeti. I've got a few 12-hour runs here in town. I've probably got 4 or 5 ultras this year. Next year, I'm going to try one of the last man standing events. I have no illusion that I can win. I'm not crazy. But I would like to push myself as hard as I can and see how far, because, you got to do a 24-hour 100 just to keep going in that event,
Sure.
So I would like to see what I can do in that style of event.
Okay.
So that'll be next year.
Nice. And then, where do you see this going in 5 or 10 years? Do you see yourself doing this long term, or are you trying to pack as much in while your body's still healthy, or what's sort of your mind frame around 5, 10 years down the road?
I'm going to do this until my body won't do it anymore. Being a big guy, my knees, they take a pounding. My lower back takes a pounding. But I'm just going to keep doing it till I can't do it. I love doing it. And then when I can't do ultras anymore, I'm still going to do halves, trail run. I'll do a half marathon. I enjoy that distance. So I don't see an end to it. I hope to be the old guy someday that's barely beating cutoffs, in my future. I hope that's me.
Oh yeah. I love it. I love it, man. Do you do any cross training, yoga, or stretching, or, you mentioned weightlifting is hard on your joints. Do you do anything else besides running?
Oh, not like I should. I'm a big fan of yoga. It helps me a lot. I've got some range of motion issues, and yoga's a big help. But I don't do it nearly as much as I should. I do lift weights. Plus having a manual labor job, there's lifting weights there all day long sometimes too.
That's good cross training right there.
I would like to pick up some swimming. I'm a pretty dense guy. It's hard for me to swim. I sink like a rock. But I wouldn't be opposed to cross training. I just need to find what I like to do. I haven't found it yet.
Yeah. It kind of amazes me that you fell in love with running the way you did, because it doesn't come easy to you.
No, not at all.
It sounds like it's really kind of tough for you because you're a bigger guy. So it amazes me when bigger people fall in love with running, because I struggle enough with it at 170 pounds, and it just must be twice as hard for you. So it's kind of,
I think that's the reason I love it. I think it has to do with, I just like doing stuff that's hard. I mean, if it wasn't hard, what would be the point in doing it? Yeah. The one reason I like ultra running is because it's not something everyone does. So for me, I just like, I don't know. I like that. And I'll be honest with you. A lot of people won't admit this. I like the crazy look that people give you when they see the sticker on the back of your car that says 100 miles and they can't figure out what it's for.
Right.
You know, I don't know what it is, but I like it when people call me crazy for some reason.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've got to admit it. Like when I first discovered ultra marathon running, like through books and blogs and stuff back in the day, I thought those guys are crazy. I kind of want to be crazy too.
Absolutely.
And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, and yeah, it's a weird form of self-expression. It's like painting a picture and letting someone look at it and decide exactly what it is. I go out and run these long distances and people can look at it and decide whatever they want to decide. Either I'm crazy or I don't know. I haven't quite put my finger on it, but
well, like I said, we're all limited. We always hear you can do whatever you want to do, but let's be honest. I'm not going to run a 4-minute mile. It's just not going to happen. I'm never going to dunk a basketball. That's not going to happen either. So for me, this is something that's not easy to do. Not anyone can just get up off their couch and go run 100 miles. It takes training. You can't fake it. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that you get a real sense of accomplishment. And it's something that technically anybody can do for the most part.
Right.
But it does take training. It does take sacrifice. I've always said it's my part-time job. I'm running 20 plus hours a week. It's a part-time job. It's what I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it's something that a guy like me shouldn't be able to do. And that's why I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be on your deathbed thinking back on your life, and these are going to be some of the key moments, some of these big races and this run across Indiana. Those are the moments. I mean, sure, the birth of your kids and whatnot, but these runs are going to stand up there with those top moments, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So just stay on the path, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You said you're not on social media. Do you have a current website or anything where people can find you or support you?
I have nothing. Good luck finding me. It won't happen.
Okay.
I'm on Strava,
Okay.
which I tell you what, here's how I found your podcast. This is an interesting story. Maybe 6 months ago, you interviewed a guy named Laz who ran across the country.
Oh yeah.
He's originally from, I want to say Hungary.
Yep.
I'm coming home from work one day and I'm going to my house and I see this guy running down the road. And if you're familiar with this area, you think to yourself, that guy's not from here because there's a trail a quarter mile from here that's perfect to run on. Why is he running down this busy road?
Right.
So I go up about half a mile and I see this RV and it says something across America on the back. And I'm like, what? There's no way. I'm going to regret if I don't turn around and see what this is. So I spin around and I go up to the RV and it was, I'm drawing a blank on her name. I'm sorry. It was Laz's fiance, Abby. Thank you. Thank you very much. Abby's in the RV and I stop and talk to Abby for a few minutes. And I explained to her that I'm doing this run across Indiana. And I actually had one of my promotional t-shirts on, my Run Across Indiana t-shirt. And when Laz finally got there, I stopped. And what a great guy. I stopped and talked to him for 10 minutes and took pictures with him.
Sorry, folks. This is a bad connection. Can you hear me, Joe? Are you there? Shoot. Can you hear me, buddy? Hey, you're back.
There he is. We're bound and determined to get this in today.
I know, dude. I can edit this up. It shouldn't be bad.
Okay.
Okay. So you found Laz and you approached him in his vehicle, and that was about the last I heard.
Yes, I stopped and talked to him for a few minutes. He was great. Him and Abby are both street people. And he told me about the cause he was running for. Explained to him that I'm doing the run across Indiana. And it's funny because you guy who's all the way across the country. Are you there?
I'm here. It's pretty spotty.
Okay.
I can kind of hear you.
Okay, you got a guy who's running all the way across the country, and he thinks I'm the crazy one because I'm trying to run all the way across the state nonstop, you know. But he put on his Strava account, he put that he was doing an interview with you, and so I was like, oh, I got to look this up, you know.
Oh.
And so I looked up Laz and on that interview, and I've been listening to you ever since.
No kidding. Well, that makes me feel good. It's crazy how people come to it, and I like that story. So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
And actually, there's one of his neighbors down in Miami. You know, like I said, we all take for granted that we do something that's crazy. But there's a guy out of Miami. His name is Micah, Mika. Last name is Shevit, Shevit. He would be an amazing interview for you. He this last week completed his 365th half marathon in 365 consecutive days.
Wow.
And he's not done. He's still going.
Wow.
So he's doing a half marathon a day, and he's done it for over a year. So that's quite a run streak. He'd be a super interesting interview as well.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how I run into you, and I've been listening ever since.
Dude. Well, I appreciate it, man. Before this connection gets any worse, you want to give any shout outs or anything to anybody else, anybody that helped you along the way or anything?
Yeah, real quick. Obviously my whole crew, my girlfriend, my whole crew that helped me out for the whole run across Indiana. Scotty Coomer, 10 Junk Miles. Yeah, he put me on his podcast early on, and it blew up from there, you know.
Nice.
That was a big deal. But Scotty's a great guy, and he was nice enough to put me on there. And the 10 Junk Miles crew, they're all crazy. So, you know, they were super supportive. People I'd never met were donating money, and it was outrageous. And I still go to events now, and 10 Junk Miles people recognize me. And so Scotty was a big part of helping me out getting this thing going. John with Motivation Theory on YouTube, he interviewed me. He got that going, you know. Those two were really cool.
Awesome.
And I everyone else, it takes like this.
I'm losing you again, buddy. Can you hear me? It's real spotty. Are you there?
Yeah.
I can sort of hear you. Can you hear me? Are you there, buddy? Nope, I lost you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a badass. Joe Kern. I'd tell you to look him up, but I don't think you're going to find him. So there he is, ran across the state of Indiana, and what a stud. What a stud. I enjoyed talking with him. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. I'm not sure if I'm going to hear back from him. That pretty much wraps it up. Ladies and gentlemen, I got another badass for you right there. Do big things. That's it. Joe, thank you for coming on the show, man. It's an inspiration, and I think it's going to inspire some other people. Aha, he's back.
One more time.
All right. Okay, so the last I heard was you were talking 10 Junk Miles. Dude, and those guys are, huge inspiration. And he's got such a huge footprint on this ultra running world with his podcast that I bet all kinds of people were donating to your cause once.
Oh yeah, I went up and did the Badger 100K last July, August, whatever it was, And just meeting him, meeting the whole crew, you know, everyone up there, it seemed like knew who I was, which was insane to me. I didn't understand it, but you know, I'm just a fat guy from Indiana that likes to run. But everyone's just so nice. You know, that whole crew is real nice.
And we've lost him again.
I can hear you.
Yeah, you gotta love technology, right?
Am I there?
Hey, there we are. Technology, dude.
We're gonna get through this.
I know. Oh, anybody else on that list, buddy?
Yeah, like I said, John with Motivation Theory Running on YouTube. He was a big help. He did an interview with me. I like running with him. I can't wait to see him again here in a couple of weeks. And just my crew and everyone else who helped. It was amazing to have all those people help me out. Like I said, it takes a village to do that by yourself.
It takes a village. It really does. Did I lose you again? Oh, God. It's killing me. All right, buddy. I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you can. If you ever make it out to Colorado, please look me up. Can you hear me? I hear you.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, sweet. All right. Yeah, if you ever come to Colorado, dude, look me up. I'd love to take you out on some trails out here and show you Colorado proper.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, man. You ever make it to you ever come out to Colorado? You ever make it to a race out here? Whatever. Just make sure you look me up. I'd love to get you out on the trails and keep this conversation going. And he's gone. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call it. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you. Peace.